right, thank you very much. I will be sharing some experiences on how we can sustainably finance road infrastructure in Ghana. And I will be talking about an emerging concept to address the issue of inadequate funding for the road sector. To start with, I just want to give a quick background of how our sector looks like and the current state of funding for road network. As of December 2022, we had a network size of about 78,000. This has been expanding quite significantly over the past 10 years. And this is the breakdown of the network in terms of the road types. We have trunk roads of about 14,500 kilometers, feeder roads about 48,000, and urban roads also about 15,000. This is the road condition mix. Currently, that was the last study that was done. It's 2020, and we had network in good condition 44, fair condition 34, and poor condition 22. The SDG also has some indicators which we need to be reporting on. Two of them are the proportion of roads maintained, and as of I think 2021, we were doing about 56%. Another key indicator is Rural Accessibility Index. As of 2021, we're doing 66%. The issue about funding has been quite problematic. In 2022, the planned budget was 6.8 billion, for various roads activity, maintenance, and rehabilitation. Allocated budget, it was initially 4 billion, but this was revised to 3.5 billion. The challenging part is when it comes to disbursement. So as of September 2022, we disbursed 1.9 billion. So you see a shortfall of about 60%. Now, the challenge this poses is that we have to then defer a lot of the maintenance and rehabilitation activities. And so over the past, and this has been the trend, I would say, over the past 10 years. So we have a backlog of road network that has not been maintained. And so the road condition may also then deteriorate over the period. When it comes to funding allocation, there are a few guiding questions. Usually, we want to ask questions like, are sufficient funds allocated for financing road network? And by the life cycle cost, we're referring to the cost of maintaining the current road network, possible extension and quality improvement, and also asset replacement. So we are interested in not just having enough money to maintain, but also be able to replace the network or the section of the network at the end of its design life. So sufficient funding for maintenance is very crucial. And I think for us, that is the main concern, and it's really about the sustainability of our network. Then we have various sources of funding. Usually we have the general budgetary allocation to the ministry. We also have various user charges, international transit. The major part is the road fund, the road levy. And here we are more interested not just in the adequacy of the funding source, but also the reliability of the source. We realize that the road fund levy hasn't been increased for a very long time. Budgetary allocation in real terms have actually been declining considering the exchange rate issues. So all these are actually impacting on the reliability of our funding sources. So the question then is, to what extent does the user contribute towards road financing? And by that, we are talking about the entire life cycle, the maintenance, the rehabilitation, asset replacement. and also the cost of capital, because since we became a middle income, we don't have a lot of concessionary loans. We have to go to the market to borrow for infrastructure. And so the cost of capital is also a major cost item that should be financed by users. There are various policy documents that's guiding sustainable financing of the road sector. We have strengthening market economic structures, calling for counterpart effort. And these are all policies that are saying that, you know what, we need to find our own means to finance the network rather than depending on development support. So if you look at the network, I've tried to look at some various scenarios. A base scenario is that, you know what, let's see how we can theoretically maintain our road network. So even assuming that donors help us to rehabilitate our core network, will we as a country be able to maintain it? To what extent can users pay to maintain the road? An extended scenario is bringing existing road network to good condition. So here we take our network as it is, look at the backlog of maintenance, and we say we want to clear the existing backlog. How much would that cost us? So I've tried to break down the road network life cycle cost. I look at the replacement costs, which will consist of whether we want to do a reconstruction or a new construction. The cost would depend on the unit cost for the network type, the road type and the surfacing type, the network size and the road design life. The surfacing type and then the road classification are all input into the model for the replacement cost. Then we have the maintenance cost. Maintenance cost is usually divided into routine maintenance and then periodic maintenance. All these are also informed by the road class and the road surfacing type. And then, of course, the network size that needs to be maintained. All right, then, of course, there are administrative costs because we need to manage all the human resources at the head office and other costs of, all the agencies who are implementing the road programs. The other cost item is the cost of capital, because increasingly we go to the open market to borrow for road maintenance. We need to also factor in the interest rates, which has to do with the source of the debt. If it's a bilateral loan, the cost of capital is different. If we are going also to the open market, the rate is different. So all these need to be factored into the road network life cycle cost. For the cost of capital, it has become increasingly important because of the significant levels of these costs. The idea of including that in our estimation of our network cost is justified by the fact that we expect governments to make some minimum return on investment when building road infrastructure. And so if we are inviting more finance into the road sector, then we also look at the opportunity cost. Then in order to improve the road network, the government takes a loan that has to be serviced. So even the fact that government must service the loan, we need to include that as well in our estimation, estimating the life cycle cost. And broadly, we could also consider the transport sector as a business that must generate returns on investment. So basically, we are saying that we are going to invite people with funding who can support road network expansion and be able to charge users either through tolling or other mechanisms. And they need to also be able to make reasonable returns on their investment. We looked at various scenarios when it comes to the cost of capital. We could have 0% if you're having a concessionary loan, 3%, and for most of the bilateral agreement, you have 3%, but it could also go to 6% or even more if we are going to the open market. Just some few issues for you to consider. We realize that road users may be paying more than the road fuel levy is telling us. I think over the years, road users have been contributing into the road fund, but road fund allocation has also been declining, meaning that if we can allocate all that users are contributing through the tolling, road fund levy, international transit, vehicle licensing, if all will be allocated, we should be able to have some resources for road maintenance. We also see the high cost of deferred maintenance. The last estimate shows that about up to 40% of our network cost is as a result of deferred maintenance. So I think the logic here is that if you defer maintenance of your road, it costs you disproportionately high when you really want to maintain the road. Looking at the cost of the network, which I wouldn't want to go into detail, but we kind of break down the network looking at the condition of the road and the type of road rehabilitation that will be required, informed by the surfacing type. We estimate that we have to contribute up to about 2% of our GDP if we want to sustainably maintain the road. And we have to contribute about up to 6% of our GDP for total road costs, which then includes also rehabilitation and new construction. Now, if you look at the rate at which the network has been expanding, as of 2010, we were doing about 45,000 kilometers of total road network. This has almost doubled in the past 13 years. So we are now talking about a network size of 78,000. All right, so we need to think through this deeply, the need for maintaining an affordable network size. And this is very crucial for sustainable road financing. Few options for us to consider. If we want to allow users to pay for the cost of the network, all we can simply do is to double the road fund levy from current level of 0.07 to 0.14 US dollar cents. Yeah, that will be, but of course, you need Parliament support for such a review. But that could be a way we can sustainably fund the network. The other is to focus on our core network so that we limit the level of expansion of the network, so that we have a network size that we can fund. We can do this also by focusing on the most traffic roads, identify those sections and make sure they are maintained so that we seem to be getting significant returns on investment. We have situations where sometimes roads are not significantly trafficked, and yet we have the burden of having to maintain them. All right. When it comes to road concessioning, which is the option that we've been calling for, tolling of our major highways becomes an option. And we could do this by identifying sections of the network which can have enough traffic levels and they can be self-financing, so that the road fund budget could then go to other sections of the network which cannot be funded through tolling, for example, the urban network and also the feeder roads.